Before I begin, if you're listening, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like for more stories that dive deep, stories that make your heart race and your soul ache. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story, it's a confession. The ocean has always been my hiding place. When the tide rolls in, it brings a kind of forgiveness I can't find anywhere else. Maybe that's why I moved here, to this small coastal town called Graybridge. A place so quiet that you can hear your thoughts, even the ones you wish would drown. My name is Ava Monroe. I'm 29, and on the surface, my life looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine: cozy beach house, a successful husband, Sunday brunches, and white wine at sunset. But what they never tell you is how easy it is for perfection to become a performance. Ethan, my husband, was the kind of man people trusted instantly. Calm, confident, warm, a local architect whose smile could sell serenity. But what I didn't know was that serenity can be a mask too. The cracks started small. Late night calls he didn't answer. Work trips that never added up. But in Graybridge, where gossip travels faster than wind, you learn not to ask too many questions, especially when you're afraid of the answers. Then one evening, it happened. I was walking along the shore, sandals in hand, the air thick with salt and memory. The sun had long slipped below the horizon when I heard laughter, low, familiar, and achingly intimate. I froze. Ethan. And a woman's voice, soft, breathless, the kind of sound that carries meaning only lovers understand. I didn't see faces that night. Just silhouettes framed by moonlight and betrayal. I remember thinking, maybe it isn't him. Maybe I'm wrong. Denial can be the kindest kind of lie. The next morning, Ethan kissed my forehead and told me he'd be working late again. He smelled of ocean spray and perfume that wasn't mine. I smiled back, my lips trembling against the truth. Days passed. Weeks. And then she appeared, the woman from the shadows. Her name was Clara Jennings, the new real estate agent in town. Blonde. Charming. Effortless. She had the kind of beauty that made other women feel like background noise. She was also the first person to ask me if I was happy. And when she did, I couldn't answer. What began as polite friendship, beach walks, coffee at the Boardwalk Cafe, turned into something deeper, something I didn't expect. Clara had this way of listening, of peeling back the layers of silence I'd wrapped around myself. And before I knew it, my grief had found comfort in the hands of the very woman who had taken what was mine. But I didn't know that then. Not yet. The night everything changed started with rain. Thunder rolled over the water, and I found myself at Clara's house, drenched, shaking, needing somewhere to feel safe. She opened the door wearing Ethan's sweatshirt. My heart stopped. Our eyes locked, and in that moment, truth and denial crashed like waves against the same rock. I should have left. I should have screamed. But instead, she reached out and whispered, "Ava, you don't have to pretend anymore." The world tilted. The air between us tightened. And before I could stop it, pain and desire collided in a single heartbeat. Her lips found mine. And in that moment, I understood how infidelity can be both a wound and a refuge, how the very thing that destroys you can also make you feel alive again. When I woke the next morning, the storm had passed. The sun glittered on the ocean like nothing had happened. But everything had. I wasn't the same woman anymore. And neither was Clara. Now, whenever the tide comes in, I hear it, the sound of her secrets, echoing in the waves. And I wonder if redemption is still possible, or if some confessions are meant to drown. I've learned that guilt doesn't shout. It whispers. It hides in the clink of coffee cups, in the hum of the refrigerator, in the way you flinch when someone calls your name. After that night with Clara, I didn't recognize myself. I kept telling myself it was just comfort, a moment of weakness, but even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. What happened wasn't weakness. It was hunger, for truth, for connection, for something real in a world built on pretenses. Ethan returned home that weekend. He smiled the way he always did, that careful, curated smile that never reached his eyes. long week, he sighed, setting his keys on the counter. You wouldn't believe the mess at the firm. I nodded, studying him. It's strange how someone can look exactly the same while becoming a stranger. We sat across from each other at dinner, two actors reading lines we no longer believed in. He talked about deadlines, about clients, about the project downtown. I pretended to listen, but all I could see was Clara, her lips, her confession, the way she'd said my name like it mattered. When Ethan reached across the table to touch my hand, I flinched. He noticed. You okay? He asked. I forced a smile. Just tired. It was the truth, but not the kind he wanted. The next morning, I went for a walk along the shore. The tide was high, restless. The sky looked bruised. And there she was. Clara. She was standing by the pier, her hair whipped by the wind, her eyes red like she hadn't slept. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she said quietly, "We need to talk." We walked in silence, our footsteps sinking into the wet sand. Every sound, the waves, the gulls, the wind, seemed to carry a warning. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan knows." The words hit like cold water. I stopped. "What do you mean he knows?" She looked away. "He came to see me last night. Said he wanted to clear the air." I thought he'd found out about us. My pulse thundered. "Did you tell him anything?" "No," she said quickly. But he looked at me like he already knew everything. That night, Ethan didn't come home. He texted once, working late again. The same lie. The same pattern. Only this time I didn't wait up. Instead, I drove. The storm clouds had rolled in again, painting the sky in shades of gray. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I didn't know where I was going until I saw the light, a faint glow from Clara's window. I parked down the road and watched. A man was standing in her living room. Ethan. The scene blurred. My breath hitched. He was pacing, agitated, gesturing wildly. Clara stood motionless, her arms folded tight across her chest. I should have left. I should have driven away. But instead, I stepped out of the car, rain hitting my face like punishment. I crept closer until I could hear their voices through the half-open window. You think she doesn't know? Ethan's voice, sharp, cold. I didn't tell her anything, Clara said. You shouldn't have gone near her. She's not who you think she is, Ethan. A pause. Then the sound of glass shattering. I stumbled back, heart racing. I didn't want to see more. I didn't want to know what came next. By morning, Greybridge felt different. Quieter. Ethan was gone again, no note, no call. Clara's house looked empty, her car missing. I tried to convince myself it was over, whatever it was. But the silence felt heavier than the truth. Days passed. Then, on the fourth day, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name, written in Clara's handwriting. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Ava. There are things you don't know about Ethan. Things I tried to protect you from. Meet me tonight at the old lighthouse. If you want the truth, come alone. The ink was smudged, like she'd written it in a hurry, or in fear. The lighthouse stood on the edge of Greybridge like an old ghost, its light long dead. By the time I arrived, the wind had picked up, and waves crashed hard against the rocks. I could barely see through the mist. Clara? I called. No answer. Only the sound of water and wind. Then, a shadow moved inside. My pulse hammered as I stepped through the doorway. The air was damp, thick with salt and decay. I climbed the narrow stairs, one step at a time. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement at the top. A woman's silhouette. Clara? The figure turned slowly. It wasn't her. It was Ethan. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the storm raging behind him. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Ava, he said softly, almost tenderly. You shouldn't be here. I took a step back. Where's Clara? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You really want to know? Lightning flashed. And for the first time since it all began, I realized the truth wasn't going to set me free. It was going to destroy me. The wind howled through the lighthouse tower like it was mourning something. Maybe it was. Ethan stood at the top of the staircase, his frame outlined by the flicker of lightning. The air smelled of rust, salt, and rain-soaked stone. I could hear the sea roaring below, waves crashing against the rocks like they were trying to warn me to run. Ethan, I whispered, my voice barely holding together. Where's Clara? He tilted his head, studying me, the way a stranger studies a puzzle. You shouldn't have come here, he said again, his voice calm in a way that frightened me more than anger ever could. I got her letter, I said. She told me to meet her. She said you were hiding something. Lightning flashed again, and for a split second, I saw it, something dark on his sleeve. A smear. Maybe dirt. Maybe blood. He noticed me looking. Don't jump to conclusions, Ava, he said, his tone shifting. You never were good at seeing the whole picture. I felt the cold stone wall behind me, grounding myself. My heartbeat echoed in my ears like a drum. What did you do to her? I demanded. He took a slow step forward. Do you really want the truth? Rain lashed against the cracked glass of the lantern room. Yes, I said, though every part of me wished I hadn't. He sighed, looking almost weary. Clara was never who you thought she was. She wasn't some lost woman you befriended out of kindness. She came here for you. I frowned. What are you talking about? He gave a small, bitter smile. She knew everything about us, about our money, the business, your inheritance. She planned this from the start. I shook my head. You're lying. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Am I? For a heartbeat, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that Clara, the woman whose lips had tasted like rain and regret, had betrayed me first. But deep down, something didn't fit. Clara wasn't cruel. Broken, maybe. Flawed, absolutely. But not cruel. She told me she loved me, I said quietly. Ethan laughed, but there was no joy in it. She said that to me, too. The words hit like a knife. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at him, trying to piece together a reality that made sense. But then I saw it, at the base of the stairs, near his boots. A flash of something red. A scarf. Clara's scarf. Before I could move, he followed my gaze. She's gone, he said flatly. And if you're smart, you'll forget her. He started down the stairs, his voice echoing. Go home, Ava. Pretend this never happened. I stayed frozen long after he'd gone, the scarf clenched in my hand, the sound of waves filling the silence he left behind. The next morning, the town woke to sirens. They'd found a car at the bottom of the cliffs, Clara's car. No body. They called it an accident. The roads had been slick, the guardrails weak. But I knew better. When I went home that night, Ethan was already there. Sitting in the living room. Waiting. He looked at me like nothing had happened. Rough night? He asked casually. I didn't answer. He reached for my hand. Ava, we can start over. His voice was gentle, practiced, like a man trying to fix a broken mirror by pretending it isn't cracked. And for a moment, I almost let him. Because starting over sounded easier than facing the truth. But then I remembered the sound of her laughter. The letter. The storm. The way her lips trembled when she whispered, "You don't have to pretend anymore." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the ocean outside, louder than usual, angry, alive. Something told me to get up, to look. When I stepped onto the porch, I saw it, a single light flickering near the pier. Someone was there. I grabbed my coat and ran. The wind bit at my skin as I crossed the sand. The light was coming from a small lantern, half buried in the dunes. Next to it, a note. My hand shook as I unfolded it. You were right about him. Meet me where the water meets the cliffs. Midnight. The handwriting, Clara's. By the time midnight came, the rain had returned. I climbed the path toward the cliffs, every step echoing with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answers to. At the top, the wind roared, and there she was. Alive. Clara. Her hair was soaked, her face pale, her eyes wide with something between fear and relief. Ava, she whispered, her voice trembling. He tried to kill me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world tilted, and everything I thought I knew, every lie, every kiss, every silence, crashed together like thunder. I took a step toward her. Clara, we have to go to the police. She shook her head. No one will believe us. Ethan has them all fooled. We have to leave Greybridge. Tonight. The sea roared below, furious and endless. And for the first time I realized love and fear sound the same when your heart's breaking. The rain hadn't stopped. It came in sheets, drumming on the cliffside, soaking everything in its path, maybe even our sins. Clara's hand trembled in mine as we stumbled down the narrow path toward the beach. The lantern she carried flickered against the wind, throwing light on our faces, two women bound by betrayal and something neither of us could name anymore. Are you sure no one saw you come here? She whispered. I nodded, though I wasn't sure. We just have to make it to the docks. Once we're on the water. She cut me off. He'll find us, Ava. You don't know him like I do. I stopped walking. No, Clara. You don't know him like I do. You only knew the parts he let you see. The words came out sharper than I intended. The silence that followed was heavy, only broken by the crash of waves below. Clara looked away, her jaw tight. You think this is easy for me? You think I planned any of this? I didn't answer. Because deep down, part of me still wondered. We reached the docks. The old wooden planks creaked under our weight. Boats rocked gently in the dark water, ropes groaning against the tide. Clara dropped the lantern and turned to me. Her eyes were wild, desperate. Ava, before we go, you need to know something. I froze. She took a shaky breath. The letter, the first one, Ethan didn't find it by accident. I left it where he could. I wanted him to come to the lighthouse. I needed him to. I was going to make him confess. Her words hit like thunder. You used me, I said quietly. No, she whispered, stepping closer. I was trying to protect you. You were his next target. Target? She nodded, eyes glistening. Ethan isn't who you think he is, Ava. The business, the investments, the trips, they're not real. He's laundering money through his clients. The people he works with aren't architects. They're brokers. And when I tried to leave, he threatened me. I felt the world tilt beneath me. The man I'd shared a bed with. The man I'd defended. The man who'd smiled as if he could never hurt me. Suddenly, headlights cut through the rain. We both turned. A car was pulling into the dockyard, tires crunching against gravel. Clara's face drained of color. It's him. Run, I whispered. We sprinted down the pier, our footsteps echoing against the wood. I could hear the car door slam, the crunch of boots behind us, a voice shouting, Ethan's voice. Ava. Clara. Stop. The sound of a gunshot split the night. Wood splintered near my feet. I grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her toward a small motorboat. She jumped in first, fumbling with the rope. My fingers slipped on the knots, shaking uncontrollably. Go. I screamed. Go. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. The boat lurched forward, the waves swallowing us whole. Ethan's figure grew smaller behind us, his shouts drowned by the storm. For a while, all we heard was the ocean, wild, merciless, endless. Clara collapsed beside me, gasping for air. Her hair clung to her face, her lips blue from the cold. "He won't stop," she whispered. I didn't answer. I just stared ahead into the dark horizon, the lighthouse fading into a blur behind us. We didn't know where we were going, only that we couldn't go back. Hours passed. The storm began to calm. The clouds parted just enough to reveal the faintest hint of dawn. Clara sat up, her voice soft. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd met before him?" I looked at her, the sea breeze tangled in her hair, her eyes fragile but still fierce. "Maybe we would have saved each other," I said. She smiled faintly. "Or destroyed each other faster." We both laughed, the kind of laugh that hurts more than it heals. Then, in the distance, I saw it, a light. A small coastal patrol boat. "Someone's coming," I said. Clara turned sharply. "No, we can't be found. If the police get involved, he'll twist it. He'll make us look guilty." I frowned. "Clara, we can't just keep running." But she didn't listen. She grabbed the wheel, steering us toward the rocks. "Clara, stop!" I shouted. The hull scraped against stone. The boat lurched violently. We were thrown into the water, swallowed by the freezing tide. When I broke the surface, gasping, Clara was nowhere in sight. "Clara!" I screamed. The waves answered back, dragging me toward the shore. I clawed at the sand, coughing, shaking, crying out her name again and again until my voice broke. She was gone. By the time the patrol reached me, the sun had risen. I told them I'd been in an accident. That my husband didn't know where I was. That Clara had tried to save me. Half of it was true. The other half, I wasn't ready to tell. Not yet. Later that day, Ethan was arrested. Not for what he did to us, but for fraud and money laundering, charges that had finally caught up to him. They said someone had tipped off the feds. No one knew who. But I had my suspicions. Because that night, as I stood by the window of my house, watching the tide roll in, I heard it again, the faintest whisper carried on the wind. "You're free now, Ava." But freedom comes with guilt. The day the detectives came, I was painting again, something I hadn't done in years. Detective Moore stood at my door, the same gentle expression he'd worn since the beginning. "We found something," he said. "About Clara." My heart stopped. He handed me a small waterproof bag, inside it, a silver chain with a locket. Clara's. Inside the locket, a photo of the two of us. The night of the art gala. The night it all began. We found it washed up near Rockmouth Point. No body, though. I nodded, tears welling. "Maybe that's the point," I whispered. Moore tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "She always said the sea was her escape," I said quietly. "Maybe she finally found it." He sighed, left the file on the table, and walked away. But when I opened the file, something slipped out, a single photograph. A woman. Dark hair. Sunglasses. A cafe somewhere far from here. The date, 2 weeks ago. The woman was Clara. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, not the broken one, but the one she wore before Ethan. If she was alive, she didn't want to be found. And maybe that was mercy, for both of us. Still, I wrote her a letter. Not to send, but to confess. "Dear Clara. You once told me love was both a weapon and a wound. You were right. I thought loving you was my escape from him, but it was really my way of finding myself again, the woman who could still feel, still fight, still forgive. If you ever read this, know that I didn't survive the storm. I became it. Ava." Spring came slowly. The ocean softened. And the town learned to stop whispering when they saw me. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I stood on the dock, the same dock where everything had ended. I tossed Clara's locket into the water, watching it sink beneath the reflection of the fading sky. It wasn't about letting go. It was about letting it be. Because the truth was simple. Ethan destroyed lives. Clara ran. And I lived. And sometimes, surviving is the loudest confession of all. Weeks later, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a small seashell and a folded note. Paint the ocean, Ava. It remembers everything. I smiled. Maybe redemption doesn't come from forgetting. Maybe it comes from remembering, and choosing love again anyway. I placed the shell on my windowsill. Outside, the waves rolled gently, humming a familiar rhythm. The sound of forgiveness. The sound of her secrets. If you've been swept away by Ava's confession, the love, the betrayal, the survival, don't leave in silence. Comment your thoughts, red heart like this story, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories of passion, mystery, and redemption. Because sometimes, the most dangerous love stories are the ones that save us.